Hey everybody, it's Aluna Michaels, astrologer, esoteric astrologer, and I want to first start out saying thank you to all the guys at the Know Thyself podcast. Hello, thank you for talking about me. It really helps. Love the kind of people you send to me. So, all right, so we are talking about the astrological events of February 2025, and I guess I just made a decision to talk about world things as well. I'm a very personal astrologer, but my clients are feeling world things very personally. So just want to kind of talk a little bit about that as well in terms of how the planets are moving and what that means. But so Uranus just went direct. Now Uranus goes retrograde and direct once a year. So this is not a really big deal. But when Uranus when any of the outer planets go direct, it's a little bit like, first of all, it can be a little bit like a mini Mercury retrograde, especially because Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. We already did this at the end of January, but it can be disruptive. A lot of people were telling me they're feeling really nervous and agitated and couldn't sleep. And hopefully, as Uranus is moving forward, that helps. Also, Jupiter just went direct on February 4th. And Jupiter is a planet of divine justice and justice in general. So hopefully that helps things if you care about world stuff. But also it can be, when it's paired with Uranus, Jupiter magnifies things. So it can be, there's a lot of this electrical energy of Uranus, right? So Jupiter can make that more so, but as it moves direct, and again, retrograde once a year, direct once a year. But now Jupiter, as it moves forward, there can be a feeling of like there's some sort of sense of relief, and in your personal life too, or even your spiritual life, Uranus and Jupiter are both about your higher principles and your feeling of being authentic in the world. And I had a friend who have a friend who was going through a circumstance where he got some advice from a therapist that didn't seem quite right for him about what to do about taking a stand with something. And he said, I just don't feel like this is really me. And I just want to be authentically me. And I said, well, send the text. It had to do with a girl. And he says, I'm just going to send this text and check in how she is. And he immediately got a response from her. It was like, oh, this is fine. I wasn't acting too needy or something. The therapist was worried he was driving the girl off. And he wasn't. And he was authentically himself in action. And it was like, oh, here's a response. And even if somebody weren't to respond to you as you're authentically you, you might say, I don't want to be around people if I don't have to, who I can't be my authentic, pure self, and, and meditate on those things that you want to say or be representing in your own life in whatever level, and say, how do I feel not being my real self? Because both Uranus and Jupiter, I think, have been, kind of shaking that out over the past few weeks. And so hopefully, as those move forward, there's a sense that if you're having some conflict with people as you are your real self, or speak up, sometimes it's like, oh, okay, of course I'll do that for you, or I didn't know that was going on in our relationship, and something gets cleared up. And also, my friend had said, after he sent the text and wasn't sure what was going to happen, he said, but I feel congruent with myself. And I love that term besides authentic. And it's very Uranus and Jupiter going direct, So that's kind of nice to act in ways you feel congruent with your own values and who you are and how you freely express yourself. So the other planet that's still retrograde is Mars, and that can be a little bumpy sometimes because Mars is about how you act. Uranus is how you're thinking and being, and they all kind of meld together in a certain way. If you take Uranus, Jupiter, and Mars going direct in the same few weeks, it is about speaking your truth, believing, trusting yourself, acting in ways that are in accordance with how you believe. And especially with Mars, it's going to be trining. So Mars generally moves so fast that it's like if it connects with another planet in the sky or a planet in your chart, it's like 3 days, maybe a week, but mostly like 3 or 4 days. But because of this retrograde, which it very rarely does, it's slowing down, so it's staying around the same degree most of February and early March. It goes direct on the 23rd, 24th of February, at 17 degrees, pretty much trining Saturn, and which is in Pisces. So Mars in Cancer, Saturn in Pisces, water to water, and it's a good angle. And Saturn is very calming. It's very steady, whereas that Mars turning direct can be like, I want to get going, like break through that traffic jam and catch up with the time I should have gotten there. But it helps Mars to be more measured as it goes direct, so less kind of, I don't know, irritable and stuff. Because sometimes Mars changing direction again, like that person that hates being in the traffic jam, and you finally get out. He says people speed by you, but it's like, okay, so I can feel calm, take measured steps, express myself calmly, and part of that's helped by this Uranus and Jupiter having gone direct. Like, do I really want to be freaking out about this or whatever? It's like, no, I can state my needs calmly, or do the actions calmly, or take my time and know I'm effective in doing what I'm doing. And Saturn helps you to be patient, so it really helps that Mars going direct. And by the way, Mars went retrograde like the first week of December. So that's nice. And also Mars being in the sign of Cancer, Cancer can be about self-care. So eating habits, sleeping enough, nurturing yourself and others, and the idea of nurturing yourself so you can nurture others better, whatever that means to you. So that can help. And also feeling that on a spiritual level that, like you're in the arms of God or in the arms of the universe. And because Cancer is that idea of parenting, but especially mothering, and being mothered and not just nurturing others, whether you're whatever gender you are of nurturing, it's parental, but most people think of Cancer as like mother. So you're thinking about that, about how you're nurtured by the universe, whether it's breathing in oxygen or you're eating food and being nourished by all this complex stuff that happens in our bodies to make energy and repair, whatever, paper cut or something, and think of, wow, I'm being taken care of so I can then care for others, So you're being cared for by your own actions, but also by these kind of external forces that are loving and kind. So you could kind of meditate on that this month, So another thing is that Venus is going into Aries. In fact, as I do this, I think it's the 6th today. It is. Venus going into Aries, that was like Monday, Tuesday. And why that's significant, just talk about Venus and Aries in general in a minute, but Venus is going to go retrograde, so it's going to stay in Aries for a really long time. It will go retrograde March 2nd or so, go direct April 13, and finally will go, because it's going back into Pisces actually when it turns around, so most of April will be in Pisces, but then it goes back into Aries and finally goes into Taurus the first week of June. So there's this prolonged time of Venus being in Aries and the very end of Pisces. So to look at where that is in your chart, where Venus will be going backwards, sometimes it's 2 houses that it would cross through, and kind of looking at those houses and say, when it's Venus, again, there's this idea of loving, relaxing, finding ways that you feel empowered by doing things you love, because Aries is about empowerment. So kind of looking at that, and on a basic kind of level, you should. It isn't like don't start a relationship when Venus is retrograde, but still being cautious, because also Mercury's going to retrograde next month. So just even while Venus is direct right now and Mercury's not retrograde, just kind of going slowly in terms of relationships and making big leaps. Because Aries, Venus and Aries, like let's show what we got, whatever. It's like just kind of pace yourself a little better. There'll be time for full speed ahead, in May or whatever, So when when Venus enters Aries again, and you go cowabunga at that time, but kind of there's a more of a caution thing February, March, April with stuff. Also money, spending money. Aries is pretty impulsive, and Venus is like buying stuff. And I've noticed, people talk about Mercury retrograde and decisions and stuff like that, and signing contracts or buying a car. People get worried about stuff like that with Mercury retrograde. But I've noticed with Venus retrograde, I'll do things like I'll buy a lot of music, and I'll be like, yeah, and then I'm like, why did I buy this? When the Venus goes direct, or fashions or something, or I don't know, a drastic hairstyle or something. Sometimes you can regret some stuff. So, keep your receipts, I guess, for the clothes at least, and you can do that with music. But sometimes, it just makes me laugh that I think, oh, I'm going to buy all this stuff, you know, clothing, and I go, it doesn't even look good on me. I think later when Venus is direct. So I've learned to be cautious with that. Um, so, but the other thing about Venus moving retrograde is also looking at, I think retrogrades are like things from the past, and Venus about how you've nurtured yourself in the past. Because Venus is about, well, maybe it's the wrong word because, Cancer and the moon are more about nurturing, but Venus, ruled by Taurus and Libra, is maybe more about doting on yourself and treating yourself well. So looking at ways you've done that works for you, connecting again with old friends who you feel very loved by. And Venus can be, platonic friends, not just romantic partnerships. Um, so, looking at those friendships that you kind of have gotten too busy to maintain and re-maintaining them. As far as romantic stuff goes, and we'll talk more about that next month, but it can get a head start in February. Don't fool yourself about if going back with somebody, like, have they really changed, or is the circumstance any different than it was, and is this good for you? And again, cautious with any relationships, whether they're new or like going back with somebody, making sure your needs are being accounted for, their needs are being accounted for. They really match, your values match, and your paths forward match. Whether they're new or a recycled relationship. So, okay. Also, yeah, Mercury, speaking of Mercury retrograde next month, but Mercury's moving into Pisces, which is already in Pisces now as I speak. Nope, it's not. It's going to be Valentine's Day, but Mercury will then track with Saturn. I mentioned that Mars is going to be trining Saturn, but Mercury will be conjuncting Saturn. And that also is very grounding at the end of February. But it can be also depressing if you live in the north and the sunlight stuff, and it can be a little issue. And just making sure you're not isolating during that late February time, but it is a great time for reflection and journal writing, setting goals, but maybe running them by a friend to make sure they're not really punitive goals or something, or they're not out of reach stuff that's going to make you bummed out you can't do them. But hopefully, because the Mars Saturn, the goals you set for yourself or the way you're acting is kind, because of the Mars Saturn trine. And then Mercury will be sort of close to Neptune at that time too, which is definitely about meditation, self-forgiveness, framing your mind so that Mercury is also about people you associate with day to day, whether it's friends or acquaintances and stuff, and feeling that you have healthy boundaries with Saturn, but able to be open in your heart and connecting. So again, that probably helps not be isolating when Mercury's there with Saturn. And I mention this because when Mercury does start to go retrograde, it slows down. If it's just zooming along, it's like, why even bother talking about Mercury Saturn? It's only over in a few days, but it's slowing down, so it's more graspable. And Mercury will also be making a sextile, a 60-degree angle to the planet Uranus. This is all like the last part of February and even into March. And Uranus is about, brilliant ideas or breakthroughs. And so there's a point of looking at how you think and breaking through negative thought habits and stuff like that, having compassion with the Neptune. The negative habit can be the Saturn, the compassion to yourself, the Neptune, and then the Uranus transit, some way to like break through, or just energy just helps you break through that. And going back to the idea of the Mars going direct in Cancer, about feeling the universe is listening to you and you're able to overcome things or move forward or have some other type of success in your life that's been sort of blocked, especially while the Mars has been retrograde these few months. So all that's pretty good. So if you'd like a session with me, alunamichaels.com, or you can text me or call me at 248-583-1663. The number will be below the YouTube video. Not so great at getting the messages directly from YouTube. I used to, and I don't anymore. So unless I go on YouTube and check, sometimes I miss those, and that's not the best way to get in touch with me. So, okay, so, I think February is going to be strangely upbeat month. And again, kind of sticking close to your heart, meditating about your heart, and behaving in ways that honor that heart, and you kind of creating energy to have people around you that are supportive of who you are, and you're kind of easily synergistically connected with their needs and stuff. So hopefully some good stuff this month for everybody. Okay, so thanks for listening, and I'll see you next month. Bye bye for now.